Hi everyone, my name is Udit. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Google Program Manager phone interview. At the end of this video, you should have a really good understanding of what the phone interview looks like, a good understanding of what interviewers are assessing in this round and some sample questions to give you specific ideas, and thirdly, some tips on how to prepare for this. As a quick introduction, I'm from Prepfully. We offer online anonymous mock interviews with Google Program Manager coaches. You can practice directly with the coaches themselves who've been helping hundreds of other candidates, or you can also practice for free with other program manager candidates who are also in the middle of their interview journeys. So, on to the Google Program Manager phone interview. This is step 2 in the program manager interview journey at Google and comes right after the recruiter phone screen. On average, you'll have one of these interviews, although in some scenarios, there are two of them, especially when your first interviewer isn't confident at having either covered all viable topics or feels you might potentially have been weak in one particular topic that they did cover. I'll discuss the format first because it's pretty standard for this round. This interview is roughly 60 minutes long and is broken down into 3 broad sections. The first section is a test of your past program management skills. The second section is all behavioral and leadership questions. And the third, which varies from across different roles, is questions which are specific to the role that you're actually interviewing for, which are also known as technical questions. Now, what is your interviewer trying to assess in this round? Their goal is to get a high-level assessment of your skills across all 3 domains that they're covering. So in the first section, your interviewer is going to deep dive into your past experience as a program manager. This usually starts off pretty broad and high level with the questions such as, tell me about a program that you've managed recently. And your interviewer here is really interested in learning about the work you did, how you drove things forward, the decisions you made, the stuff you unblocked or influenced, as well as the lessons you learned from it all. So how did your entire experience help you become a better and more effective program manager? Their questions accordingly will reflect this intent. So they'll often take the shape of, so what would you do differently if you had to do things all over again? Or what were some of the biggest challenges you faced from the teams you were working with as part of this program? In the second section then, this is all about behavioral and leadership questions. Your interviewer is trying to understand your motivation for the role, as well as how you'd react to situations that you might face on a day-to-day basis. And questions are accordingly going to reflect this. So for instance, you could be asked how this role at Google aligns with your long-term career plans. You could also be asked on what your approach to dealing with failures or unexpected events has been in the past. And their goal here is to understand, have you demonstrated the sort of leadership traits that are critical to succeed as a program manager? But also whether program management at Google in a specific shape and form is the right fit for you, and if you are accordingly the right fit for them. In the third and final section, the focus is all on role-specific questions. So these questions really depend on what you're interviewing for. So I'll give an example. Let's say you're interviewing for a learning program manager role. In this context, your interviewer might be keen to understand what your background in learning and development has been, or what your experience working with recruitment or HR has been, or what your experience in growing people internally has been like, so that they can then see whether you'd be a good fit for this specific role that you're interviewing for. I'll give another example. A recent role that Google hired for was, for instance, a climate program manager. So it's all about sustainability. It's all about understanding your passion for the field, but also what your background in it is, whether you're familiar with the technicals of the industry and how it operates, but also whether you have ideas on how Google could potentially take strides forward in that entire ecosystem. I've covered a few sample questions when going through these sections, but we've got hundreds of them on our website and they're distributed across each different interview type as well. So if you're looking for practice, I'd actually recommend checking that out. I'll include a link in the description below. I'm next going to move into the tips for this interview round. I've got 3 tips. The first is always make sure that you're answering the actual question asked. Why? Because it's really easy to forget at the moment that, for instance, an interviewer might have asked, tell me about a time, and you start answering in the theoretical about, here's how I would do this if I was faced with this situation. And the intent of the question is actually very, very different. It's subtle, but it's important because here they're trying to understand, do you have past experience doing something, not how would you theoretically deal with this situation in the future. In a question that's role specific, for instance, use that as an opportunity to clarify the scope of that question and use that to demonstrate that you actually know what they're asking might be broad and abstract, but that you have the specific knowledge that would allow you to give a legitimate answer to the specific that they have asked in that particular instance. Second tip, you need to be extremely succinct in this round. You need to cover a lot of ground in this interview, and ideally you want to avoid letting one topic hijack the entire conversation. So when preparing, make sure that you think of several stories that you're going to bring up in your interviews, particularly for the behavioral and leadership section. Think in advance of what the key messages are that you want to communicate, as well as ancillary information that might prove useful in follow-up questions, because these questions are never going to stop at just your first answer. There's always going to be a bit of back and forth. For role-specific questions, have all relevant information at your fingertips so you can bring it, recall it, deliver it, but also deliver the most relevant sections. So that leads me to my third and final tip, which is to practice. There's just no replacement for good old-fashioned practice. Say your answers out loud and record them, play them back and see if there's efficiencies you can introduce within them. Say them out loud to friends or colleagues and let them give you feedback on are you communicating and the key points accurately, are you distilling the information to the right extent. And best of all, just practice with a Google Program Manager who can actually give you feedback. If you're ask them if you're adequately demonstrating the skills that Google cares about, you can book one of these directly on Prepfully. I'll include the link below for this as well. That's all from me. That's our guidance from Prepfully and our Google Program Manager experts on how to rock the Google Program Manager phone interview. Once you feel ready for some practice, you can practice for free with other Program Manager candidates. We get a regular stream of them on our website. And if you just want customized coaching or specific advice on your stories or your answers or on what a sample interview might look like for the role that you're interviewing for, you can always book one of those as well on Prepfully's website, and our coaches will be more than happy to help you in your interview prep. I'm also going to link to a bunch of other useful resources. So the question bank I alluded to, we've got a written guide that delves into some of these topics in a lot more nuance and with a little more context. So feel free to check those out. I hope they prove helpful. If you have follow-up questions about the Google Program Manager interview or the phone interview that I've just talked about, please ask in the comments below. And likewise, if you want me to cover any other topics in this domain, also feel free to ask that. If you found this video useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you and good luck.
Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe. Our website is prepfully.com. We've got lots of interview questions there. You can also schedule a mock interview with one of our experts. You can find the link in the description below. All the best from us at Prepfully, and we hope you totally rock your interview.